Welcome to another Zoom. That means I love you in international language. I've done that since 1977. So everybody that recognizes me in malls or wherever they are, they'll do this, they'll do this. And I know immediately they recognize who I am. But today we have Dr. Michael Brown. This is his latest book. It is a beautiful book. And Dr. Brown, PhD, I try to associate with PhDs 2 or 3 times a year because it makes me feel like I actually have a brain if I can just talk to them. You are who you associate with. So today we're going to be associating with Dr. Michael Brown, PhD. Good to have you on.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Is this your home in the back of you?
Yes, it is. It's my home office that we're broadcasting from.
Is that in Florida?
No, North Carolina. I'm a New Yorker. Originally spent the first half of my life in New York. Then we moved with our family a few different places. And to my surprise, since 2003, we've been in the North Carolina area.
Where are you near in North Carolina?
Near Charlotte.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Are you near the Billy Graham compound?
About a half hour away. It's extraordinary. The Billy Graham Library. They're doing some revisions on it now. But when I went there a few years ago, I was blown away by the impact it had and the recognition of how God can use a human being. You realize his humble origins, and it's just the hand of the Lord was on him.
Have you been to the Cove?
Yes, I've been there as well.
Wow. Yeah, Billy Graham, we're in Florida right now in the St. Petersburg area, Clearwater, Tampa Bay area. And Billy Graham began his schooling in Tampa at the Florida Bible Institute.
Really?
And it was a converted like a clubhouse for a exclusive golf course. Dr. Watson was the president of, it was Florida Bible Institute, which became Trinity College, Florida. And that's where he settled with the Lord on the 18th golf course, because it was a golf course all the way around, of whether the Bible was inerrant. Was it actually God's word? I've got to know this. So he prayed most of the night to clear that up in his mind, because he had obviously the calling of God on his life. And so he went from there to Wheaton College. And then the rest is history. That's where he met Ruth.
Yeah.
That's where their whole life just expanded. So it's interesting that he couldn't speak very well, or he was scared to death. He said when he gave his first message in Florida, some little trailer park, I think, or maybe some small church, he said he had a whole sermon that ended in 15 minutes. So to read the history of people like yourself or whatever, isn't it amazing how God takes this individual like you and said, I'm going to give you a phenomenal mind, Michael, and what you do with it, you make that decision.
Yeah, I was certainly wasting it before I knew the Lord. I was getting high, using LSD, shooting heroin, putting every drug into my body I could, the ages of 14 to 16, hippie rock drummer playing in a band, a Jewish kid that was in complete rebellion. And God reached down and radically and dramatically saved me. So he enjoys taking the least of these, the worst of these, the weakest of these, the foulest of these, and using us for his glory. That way everybody realizes it's his power and it's his wisdom. It's not us.
And you are a result of a transformed life. And then what God does with that, it's just because your books, how many have you written?
43 now.
On every subject. How do you select? Does God say this book next, or does the publishing company said, have you thought about writing one on this subject?
Well, it's really threefold. Most of them come that I'm burdened to write on a particular subject. It's burning within me. I see a need to address. Sometimes the publisher will come to me and they'll say, would you pray about addressing this subject? And then as I lean into it, we'll tweak it and go in a little different direction. And sometimes there's a need that exists.
Yes.
You know, as a Jewish believer in Jesus, I was introduced to the rabbis immediately after coming to faith. You know, my dad said, Michael, it's great you're off drugs, but we're Jews. We don't believe this. So brought me to the local rabbi. And then that rabbi brought me to other rabbis. And when I looked for resources to answer the rabbis, I couldn't find anything. There were great Christian resources, but they weren't sensitive to the Jewish objections. And the Jewish resources, the Jewish Christian resources I found were more evangelistic than apologetic, answering questions and things. So there was nothing that existed. And I began to write out, okay, here's some of the main questions, here are the answers, and then realized I had a real calling to do it. So I wrote a definitive 5-volume set on answering Jewish objections to Jesus. So the books come about in different ways. The book that you're holding up, the most recent book, The Silencing of the Lambs, The Ominous Rise of Cancel Culture and How We Can Overcome It, with quite a stunning cover that the publishers put out.
You got to tell me the story behind the cover.
Yeah. So I was tremendously burdened because I write several articles a week, normally about 5 op-ed articles every week, dealing with what's happening in the world and culture around us.
Now you have your own radio program, right?
Yeah, daily radio show from 3 to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday Eastern time, and we do a live stream online as well. So I'm constantly interacting and interfacing with moral and cultural issues, and I saw this dangerous rise of cancel culture, not just trying to demonize Christians, not just trying to marginalize us, but cancel us, completely remove our voice from the public platform. So I really was burdened about this. I talked with the publisher. They wanted to know what I wanted to write my next major book on. I gave them several ideas. I said, but this is the one burning in me most. And then they resonated with it deeply. And that cover came about simply by telling the graphics people what the book was about. I'm good at recognizing a good cover, but not suggesting a good cover. Boy, and I didn't have
the lamb with the replica of the flag as a muzzle.
Yeah. So basically, being muzzled by America, and even an attempt to use the laws of America to muzzle us. So it was just an idea that the graphics people came up with that I found frankly stunning. And it's interesting. As I've done interviews on the book, people have wanted to talk to me about the cover. I don't remember that happening. With all the books I've written, I don't remember them saying, hey, tell me about this cover. So kudos.
I actually read the books. I've talked to a lot of people like yourself that have written a lot of books. And I've talked to many of them. When I tell them I read the book, they say, what is funny is the last interview they did, the guy never got away from the cover.
Oh, that's funny.
So in other words, he didn't even open the book. The cover was it. And he said, and he finally told one guy, he said, I have to give you something that maybe you haven't realized. The inside of the book really has nothing to do with that cover. So it kind of shocked. It was a shock.
In this case,
it does.
The book has everything to do with the cover. And in fact, I'll tell you kind of interesting little secret here. So when there are books that I've written, say when COVID broke out, I talked to one publisher and we got a book out overnight. I mean, I put it together literally in 8 days.
Who's the publisher?
And, this was also Charisma Media that put it out, same as Silencing the Lambs.
They're right in Orlando.
Yeah. So that was called When the World Stops, and it was words of faith, hope, and wisdom in the midst of crisis. So we got that out really quickly, within just a few weeks. But normally, you write a book, you work on it for months. Some books you work on for years. Then it gets to the publisher, and then from there, it's only 9 to 12 months with the publisher that they're going through it. There's the editing, the proofreading, the cover design. And then you have to have a block of time. Okay, now it's going to be printed, and then it's going to get into the bookstores this quarter, into catalogs this quarter. In other words, it has to be planned out. So what happens is I keep trying to update it so that it's as current as it can be when it comes out. But by the time it comes out, I've already written another 1, 2, even 3 books. Sure. And I'm focused on whatever I'm currently working on. So what I've done in the last couple of years, when the book comes out, my book comes out, and I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews surrounding that book, I will buy the audio version of my own book and listen to someone else read it. And this kind of impacts me afresh with the message of the book.
Good for you.
And I have to say that going through this, even though I wrote it, I was stunned to see how intense things are. And that's why the first half of the book lays out the issues, the problems, how there really is a target on our back. I mean, shocking things with big tech, shocking things on our university campuses, shocking things in the society as a whole. A real attempt. This is not some paranoid person cowering in a corner saying the sky is falling. I'm talking about something we've never had to face before in our history. But the second half of the book is full of faith-building, practical strategies as to how we can overcome cancel culture. So I really believe, and we're hearing this from readers.
Thank you for adding the Bible to your book. Because I've seen the others where the book is really good, but I keep saying, where's the Bible?
Yeah. So the second half of the book, after we deal with what's happening in the culture, is by following biblical principles, how we can overcome cancel culture.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the cancel culture demonic? Is its origin demonic?
Yes, because it goes beyond what human beings normally do. You know, we are capable of all kinds of evil as human beings. We recognize that. We don't need a devil to make us do wrong things. But there's some things that go so far, that go to such extremes. I have example after example after example in the book of people from the left, of radical liberals speaking out against cancel culture because it goes too far for them.
Yeah.
You know, there's one singer and songwriter, Nick Cave, and he said that cancel culture is mercy's antithesis. So when you hear something like that,
I heard that song.
Yeah, you think this really is from the pit. You know, you have someone like Barry Weiss. She's professing bisexual. She's, quote, married to her lesbian partner. She is a liberal millennial, worked with the New York Times. And the moment she expressed anything that differed with the prevailing narrative there, she was demonized. She was called a Nazi. They wanted to axe her, you know, off with your head, so to say. And she calls cancel culture social murder. So this thing really is impelled.
Do you have a book there in front of you?
No, I don't.
Okay, just check because let me just tell people the flap on this book when you get it, and I definitely recommend it. Read that. That is wisdom personified. Continue.
Yeah, I could reach up to my bookcase over there and grab it. But
you can if you want to.
No, that's right. You've got it in hand. That's fine.
But I just gave a commercial on it. So.
All right, good. Yeah, so folks are going to have to get the book just to read
but
the
you say
inside
in the
flap.
book, in the preface, you say Wikipedia offers the definition of cancel culture. And you talk about there has been 8,790,000 results on Google, people just asking this term. So it's a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's the reality. I'll just give you an example. You know, we'll see what happens on Twitter if Elon Musk is successful, everything works out for him to take it over. But right now, major Twitter accounts have been suspended because they simply made the comment that, quote, Rachel Levine, President Biden's appointee as Assistant Secretary in the for Health and Human Services, that Richard, quote, Rachel Levine is a biological male. Just a simple statement of fact of biology.
It's scientific.
Can get you suspended on Twitter. I have a colleague who's a respected psychologist. So he's got his degree, his MD in this field. And he did a series of videos on his YouTube channel looking at a peer-reviewed study that indicated that homosexual men, in the midst of being treated for past traumas, so receiving psychological treatment for past traumas, noticed a reduction in their same-sex attraction. And there's a fascinating study indicating this could be a key to change.
Yes.
So he posted it on his YouTube channel. He was on my radio show talking about it. They remove his channel. YouTube completely removes his channel. Prior to that, his father, who was even more famous and a pioneer in helping men with unwanted same-sex attractions through sitting with them and counseling them, all of his books, every single book his father wrote was removed on Amazon. They removed it. Why? Someone said, well, I don't like these books. I hadn't even read them because it said that men with unwanted same-sex attraction can change through counseling. So you're talking about just removing people, banning them. I had another colleague with a Facebook account, and he posted what the Bible said about homosexuality on Facebook, and his page was removed, and on and on. I've had friends read this book, and they tell everyone, you've got to read it. You must read it.
Terrific.
But they told me when they would read it, they couldn't read it late at night before they fell asleep because what we were saying was too disturbing. He said, well, I don't want to read it. No, that's what's happening. That's the reality. But then as they got to the rest of the book, and throughout, I bring words of encouragement. But when they got to the second half of the book, which actually has more chapters, boy, were they encouraged and challenged. I had one friend.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Well, that's another Holy Spirit thing, because I had written a book called Jezebel's War with America, where, say, 80% of the book lays out what's happening in the world around us. And then I take 2 solid chapters to focus on strategies. That's what I was going to do in this book. But I felt, no. Make half the book the practical strategies, how we overcome.
That was a God thing.
Yes, I believe that. I was stirred to do it. I have one of my colleagues, won't mention his name, but he's very bold, very public, outspoken about his faith. And he contacted me after reading this and said, I thought I was radical. He said, this book really stirred me to go to another level. And now God's using him to speak throughout America.
Critical race theory. What are your opinion?
So it's very interesting. As I've interacted with some of my Black colleagues, I've understood that I may be saying one thing and they may be saying another thing. So let me first say what CRT is not.
Okay.
That many people think it is. CRT is not saying that when we teach American history, we need to teach it honestly, as painful as it is. I'm all for that. I'm 100% for that. You have to be age appropriate, how much kids can digest and handle. But as we're growing up, as we're learning, let's learn the full horrors of the African slave trade. Let's learn how deeply segregation and racism.
Let's learn what we did to the Indians.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to next. Let's learn the truth of it. Let's understand it. And then let's learn the good and the beautiful and the glorious. Let's learn them side by side. I am 100% for that. CRT, as we use the term, as we understand it, is saying that everything must be seen in a race-based way. And then you now learn things so that you have the oppressor class and the oppressed, so that, for example, white students simply by nature would be part of the oppressor class and therefore guilty. And it's not a matter of saying, hey, this is what happened in our past. It's a matter of saying, this is who you are today. And with that also, it doesn't recognize the good and the beautiful and the glorious. But that is used as well to shut things down. I'll tell you something really interesting. When I say shut things down, shut down conversation, shut down interaction. But you see, there's a pushback. I always knew, I've been saying it for many years, that those on the left, for whom we pray and for whom Jesus died, but they'll overplay their hand. It's happening now with transgender activism. A lot of people who said, hey, look, 2 men love each other, 2 women love each other. They should have the right to marry. What's wrong with that? Well, they didn't sign up for 15-year-old boys sharing a locker room with their 15-year-old daughter and playing on her sports team. That's not what they were planning on. They were not planning on the president saying the transgender rights are the human rights issue of the day. And if you dare speak out against that, you'll be penalized. So it goes too far. It's the same thing with CRT. Of course, we're anti-racism. Of course, we want to see equality for all. Of course, were there any vestiges from the past that have lingered on, of course we want to address them. That, we're Americans and we want there to be liberty and freedom. But we didn't want this radical agenda in the schools, or, for example, BLM, which we 100% affirm that every Black life matters, 100%, 1 trillion%. But we do not affirm the agenda of BLM, which in many ways is Jezebelic, meaning similar
it was just set up as a money grabber.
Well, not just that, so greed drives a whole lot of things, right? But it is queer exalting. It does not say a positive word in its original statement, which it removed from internet after many of us drew attention to it. But I mean, it talks blatantly and plainly in a way that is. There are some of the leaders that engaged in witchcraft and said, "Hey, we call on the spirits of the dead. When we mention the names, say this name, say that name. When we mention those names, we are calling on the spirits of the dead," and so on. You're talking about something that is demonic, something that is anti-family in terms of how God ordained and established things, and you don't dare say a word against it, or you will be canceled, or there'll be a riot in your city. So these are the various factors. When we get into the chapter on college campuses, a survey was done by Harvard Crimson, which is a student publication at Harvard, and they surveyed faculty members in terms of their political beliefs and found that 1 in 500 identified as conservative. 1 in 500. Oh. So you think of the environment that students are in. You have other professors who are afraid to speak out publicly, and on it goes. The solution, though, is in our hands. The solution is in our hearts. And if we will take in a very simple biblical principle, which is this: if you save your life, you lose it. If you lose your life for the gospel, you find it. Yes. If we will take hold of that, we will be instantly free.
How do you get past pastors that say, I should be spending my time, which is true, preaching the word of God, and these other issues like we're talking about, we should keep that out of the pulpit?
Yeah. Number one, the word of God interfaces with these issues. Let's say you're just teaching through Romans 1. Well, in the very first chapter, you're going to deal with issues of sexuality and homosexuality. It's going to be right there. As you're going through the prophets, you're going to be dealing with issues of justice and speaking out against national sin. What if you had the same argument during the days of slavery? How would we feel about that now? We'll just teach people to love Jesus and avoid these issues. No, if you love Jesus, you have to love your neighbor, and therefore you can't be a slave trader or a slave owner. But here's the other rub, because I travel and speak as well. I'm not just sitting writing books and teaching students and doing a radio broadcast. I'm in the churches, and I've been in the churches for decades and decades. And these are the issues that people are dealing with in the churches. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to come in and speak about human sexuality issues today. And at the end of the service, we'll do a Q&A, and the most heart-wrenching, heartbreaking questions are asked by family after family, individual after individual. And then afterwards, there's a line of people waiting to talk to me in tears, and we get the emails. This is the world we live in. Our kids are being exposed to this. Here, if people need one more wake-up call. So you're in the generation before me. I'm in baby boomers. You're in the called traditionalists by the pollsters. So in your generation, less than 1% currently would identify as somewhere in the LGBTQ spectrum. My generation, baby boomers, according to a Gallup poll last year, baby boomers, 2.8% would identify as someone in the LGBT spectrum. Gen Z, so young people now that are being polled, say between 18 and 23 years old, Gen Z, 21% identify as someone in the LGBTQ spectrum. Wow. George Barna did a poll, respected Christian pollster last year. He came up with 40%. So what happened? The society shifted, media shifted, social media shifted, schools shifted. all this happened. I've talked to educators that have told me about the shifts that took place in schools where they used to teach that went from a heavily Christian base and solid moral standards to now LGBTQ plus activists, buying into all the talking points and suppressing others. This is the world our kids are being raised in. I've talked to pastors and leaders who say, my kids raised in the church, raised in the faith, don't accept my values on these subjects now. They have been that swayed by the society around them. So
we're moving fast.
Right. We are being morally negligent as shepherds if we don't address these themes. So I call for pastors to speak it. Now here's the thing. I'm called to do it more. I engage all the time in Jewish outreach. Yeah. I engage all the time in preaching in churches to stir hearts for revival. I go to the nations. I've been overseas over 160 different trips around the world. I love world missions. My heart beats for all those things. But I've also been called to be a voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. So I'm called to do that more than your average pastors. I fully understand that. So we have the resources for you. In other words, pastor, use us. Use our resources and others like us so that you can be equipped. You don't have to do all the studying and the learning. You use our resources and then as it's appropriate, minister to your people or have a special seminar for those who are struggling in these areas or do something because I'm telling you, your people are hurting, especially the younger generation. The issues are there. The questions are there.
We have a minute and 30 seconds. Would you close in a word of prayer and we'll go right out with your prayer?
Yes. Father, we're talking about people that you love, people who are hurting. Lord, we're asking you to work and act. Lord, we've talked about my book. Use it to help equip, strengthen your people. Use the other resources that are out there. And Lord, raise up an army of fearless evangelists.
Amen.
Who will take the gospel to the streets and who will loudly and clearly and lovingly proclaim Jesus. Raise up an army of courageous shepherds. Amen. Who will say, I can't worry about the tithers. I can't worry about what the board will say. I have to be concerned about what God says.
Yes.
Raise up courageous believers in the workplace, in academia, in the media, who will fear you more than they fear the faces of men, and who will say, regardless of cost or consequence, I am going to lift up Jesus.
Yes.
Lord, may your spirit turn the tide. And for those, Lord, who are trying to silence us, may they encounter you. May they encounter your love. May they encounter your conviction. May they encounter your reality.
Amen.
And may they turn from sin and turn to you and find new life. Lord, move in power. May we see an extraordinary act of your power in the days ahead to glorify Jesus and shake the nation. We ask it in his name. Amen.
Amen. We've had it on the screen during the interview. Get your copy. God bless.
God bless.